Because of those board meeting
Right.
on the 11th, but there was no work session scheduled.
There's no workshop before the meeting. Just we start 7:30.
Yeah, we didn't schedule
I have my grandson is giving a presentation at a school in Manhattan at 6 o'clock, so I have
Oh,
to
boy.
be there. But it's on the west side, so I'm gonna be there for half an hour.
Yeah,
so
you'll be late.
Yeah.
It'll be all right. Stay for your grandson's thing. We'll,
We are
we'll,
live.
we'll hold down the
Yeah.
fort.
Okay, which is a public hearing at 8.
Yeah, but that means we have to start at 8 o'clock. Doesn't mean we have to,
Right.
yeah.
Are you gonna
We
have?
have to start after 8. We can't start before 8.
Is this a new public hearing or we're continuing?
I think that's probably the continuation of the ETPA, right?
No, I think, is that? the
Is it a
next
new one?
Hold on.
That's the next one.
I thought the ETPA was as of this meeting.
Just double check. No, the 11th is our budget hearing.
Budget hearing.
Okay.
I should need to get.
You ready to go?
Yep.
Is the ETPA this Thursday? Public hearing?
No,
What's the public hearing Thursday?
the budget hearing.
Oh, it's the budget hearing, of course, yeah. So we don't have a workshop, we have the budget. Hearing. All right, we do pledge, right? Have it on the agenda that we do pledge. Workshop. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. All right, you want to take the reign on the budget discussion? How you want to do it?
So, first of all, Jen is not here.
Yeah, I
She
know.
had a health
Oh, no.
situation, had to leave. That leaves me kind of holding the bag without having prepared to do that for this particular meeting. So sorry about that. I do have the spreadsheets running on our budget and Joe has distributed a wonderful package of introductory material, which is online on the village website, went out to the village board and the public. As a just general framing comment, the village is in better shape than in recent years financially. The hotel tax, parking is doing better. We found some ways to increase revenues and decrease costs. So we're in a position which is enviable compared to past years where we're talking about how to spend more money than we had the year before. Nonetheless, the requests that have been submitted and which are on the table do exceed the budget if we're gonna set at the tax cap. The village board needs to decide, basically, if you're staying under the tax cap, that's our line, and so that's an important thing to talk about and just make sure that we know what we're doing there, so we can.
By way of comparison, I had lunch today with Stephen Vesio, who's the mayor of Broadcliff, Mass. Who, do you know Stephen?
I do.
And Stephen, they just had their first budget meeting yesterday. They had, because of retirements and everything like that, they are looking at a massive. He says they're going to have to break the tax. I said, how much? 3-4%? He says 10%. I said, oof. He's like, we're getting killed on the. It was the retirement benefits and the things like that just hit all at the same time. They had a whole bunch of retirements at the same time.
10%.
So like,
There
so,
could come a day when NIAC cannot make tax cap.
oh, I think there's absolutely going to
Needs
be a day that
be
they can't
aware
make
of
tax
that.
cap.
Yeah.
Oh.
I would actually ask Jen to find out whether the town was gonna blow through theirs. Because I was curious. I doubt they are. My guess is that if we're okay, then so were the other municipalities within Rockland. But it's, I mean, we've stayed within it for, I think, at least as far as I've been here, I don't think we've had to go above it. But when our mandated contractual raises for the unions are 3% across the board, and we're honoring that 3% for all the full-time employees.
Yeah.
Who wouldn't otherwise be mandated to get it, well, then we're looking at 3% versus a 2.4% increase in the taxes, which is our main revenue driver. You have to be creative, which I think we've been. I think we've been pretty good. We're getting revenue from other sources. We have the permit money, we've got the hotel tax, we've got some other things which have ramped up a little bit. All right, so
Are there any what's the consequence of going past the two?
there used to be something that would happen, like when Cuomo was governor, that when he put it in,
Well, you're not allowed to exceed the tax cap unless you pass a local law saying you're going to do that. So the first consequence is you need to take some actions before you pass your budget to even allow yourself to exceed the tax cap.
yeah,
Then it's essentially a political consequence.
yeah, and the second consequence is you don't get elected. That's like the
You don't
next
get
time up,
reelected.
you don't get reelected. So actually, the fact that the budget takes place after is petitioning over?
Yes.
I see, budget takes place after petitioning, so at least it doesn't inspire anybody to jump in. All right, so, but I think my general feeling is we might as well talk about that off the top. I mean, that's a big decision. We've been presented with a budget that almost balances without breaking through the tax cap. The only reason to break through the tax cap would be that, well, if we did, then we have some other revenue to play with, and maybe we can start building reserves and things like that. It also might mean that, if we could get away from the tax cap as like, in other words, if you start exceeding it every year, it stops being a thing. You know what I mean? So you sort of like, you kind of build up,
Yeah, I would prefer.
iocane
remaining-
powder
Yeah.
immunity.
I'd prefer remaining with the 2.4, just keeping it and doing whatever we can to avoid having to exceed that.
I think that's probably right.
And I think we have a lot of play.
Yeah, I don't think we need to. I think the only reason we would do it would be to say that, I mean, just to give us an example, let me just pull up the budget. The revenue, just so we have it on the board, total revenue is about 6.5 million. That's our total revenue proposed in the budget.
Right.
And 4.2 comes from the real property tax. So if we were to increase the property tax by a point, let's say we went up to 3.4, that'd be what, 1% of 4.2 million?
So it's the 400,000,
I think it's 10%. It'd only be 40,000.
40,000.
So in other words, the going up on the tax cap, if we would go up by a point and have take the political hit of having blown through the tax cap, we're getting $40,000. It's not worth it.
Not worth it.
$40,000.
Yeah,
It's just not,
worth it.
to have that be a thing. Like, you just don't want to have to create that being the narrative. I do think it's really worthwhile. What we should absolutely do as part of the budget, and can we make a note to do this? Let me make a little note for myself about doing this. Is can we the average village tax that is paid within the village, they lump us with the school tax and the town tax and the county tax, and we are this little tiny rounding error on the school tax.
It's
Not
about-
quite a rounding error, but we're very small.
It's about 10%.
10% of the tax bill. So you're paying about, for the average tax bill in Nyack is probably above $12,000-13,000.
Right.
So the average village tax is like $1,200,
Right.
as opposed to the 8,000, 9,000. But in other words, because people are always like, oh, I pay all these taxes. It's like, well, you pay all these taxes for the schools. You don't pay a huge
Yeah,
amount of
the
taxes to
schools are
the.
like the biggest chunk of people's property.
Yeah, that's the big
Schools,
chunk.
then the town, and then the
Yeah.
village.
And so I think it might be worthwhile to make clear how much of the tax bill is the village. But we haven't had, I mean, we haven't gotten anything specific about village taxes other than the general challenge of being in New York where all the taxes are high. All right, so we generally feel like we're gonna try to stay within. Are you good with that also?
Yeah, no. Yeah, I'm fine staying within the tax cap.
All right, so if we do that, then our proposals are like $350,000. The ones that I highlighted are about 350 grand, and but we have a lot more revenue from other sources. So our overall budget gap right now is about $140,000. So the question is, where do we get the $140,000? So here's the question. Do you want to, I've got the budget in front of me, and I've also got the memo I wrote today, which kind of goes through each of the 10 proposals. I think it might make more sense for us to, I mean, unless anybody has any other kind of way of doing this, would be to talk about each of the proposals and get a general sense, because I made suggestions about each of them
Yeah.
to get a general sense how everybody feels about them. And then when we have that, and that might get us a sense of where we stand, because there are other things in the it's not just the new proposals. There's stuff that was in the existing budget, which is not new, but which we could theoretically cut if we wanted to cut it. I'm just using an example. We don't have a huge amount of discretionary stuff in there, but theoretically, if we wanted to cut, if we said, well, we've got this grant for the basketball, so we have $10,000 allocated for the NIAC hoops. We don't need to do that because we got a grant for it. So we cut out the $10,000. Now, we may not want to do that. We may still put the $10,000 in. Why don't you come up front so I can just see you and hear you?
Well, I didn't know if it was like a Roman forum where you said.
No, come
Oh,
on,
no,
just come
yeah,
sit.
you guys can come closer.
Cool.
I totally
In
threw
fact-
all my things on the chair.
Okay.
Here, there.
Why don't you pull up a chair, pull up close if you want.
All right.
The,
On hoops, I think I could correctly recall the way Mayor Hammond was thinking about it was when we went to Zabrowski for funding for that. It was the understanding that that would cover the hoops.
and you would just take it off the budget.
Yeah, it wouldn't be in addition to the,
But
Okay.
how long would that,
Well, just a year,
For this
$30,000 for
okay.
the year. But it's for other programs besides hoops,
Right.
$30,000 for hoops and football and something else.
yeah,
But at least we covered this year's hoops and we could, I mean, we didn't have, I was only using that as an example just to say that hoops has not changed from last year,
Yeah.
so it's not something that's on my list of like, here's the new stuff and we gotta chop down the new stuff. But it is something that we could say, well, we're saving $10,000 on that because it's being paid for by a grant.
and that was through the Y, right?
No, it was, the way it
Yes.
worked, sort of. The $10,000 was supposed to, goes to the hoops program.
Yeah.
We had issues with kind of, there was no one to give the money to because there was no
Right.
Daquan, what's his last name?
Kerr.
Kerr?
yeah.
He didn't have like an organization to
Yeah.
give the money to. And so they decided to put it under the auspices of the Y because the Y had all the management experience and it was supposed to, and there's been some issues with them kind of working together,
Okay.
which I was supposed to meet with Phil from the YMCA last week to go over, but I had to cancel at the last minute and he's away this week. So we're gonna meet again next week. And Don's right on top of that as well to just sort of make sure that NIAC Hoops stays NIAC Hoops, stays
Right.
under Daquan. And then if YMCA wants to do other things, you know, now that they've got a relationship with the BOCES to use the gym, they're doing other things at the gym, which they are free to do.
Okay,
Just the Saturday morning program should remain NIAC Hoops for NIAC
okay,
kids and
Yeah.
NIAC adults to be able to play basketball.
okay.
And with the money for that, the $10,000, we could still allocate it because we could then say, well, we'll use and what could we save the $10,000 for next year, or could we expand the program, or what could
I
we
guess that's
do?
my next question is,
Save money. We just-
has the grant funneled its way to us or to the Y, whoever's the receiver of it?
It's, the Y is the recipient of the funding
Yeah.
used for the basketball program.
Yeah, no, I'm saying, has it funneled down from the state?
The hoops money that we paid them this year just
Yeah.
came out of the general fund.
Okay, okay,
The
Then
grant, we
went
just
to-
got the grant.
We went to Zabrowski
Okay.
for a grant.
yeah,
and
But we haven't gotten that money yet, but when we get it.
We
we'll-
have a commitment for it.
we've committed.
right, that's what the reason I'm asking is because I've worked with those grants, so I just wanted to know how far you've gotten, because I know the process can.
Yeah,
take
it
some
took a
time.
really long time, but
Yeah.
finally a letter arrived. and-
Okay.
Oh, yeah, this has been like.
Yeah.
For 8 months, I've been hearing about this
Yeah,
grant coming through.
it's,
So,
trust me, so have I.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I have some suggestions on the revenue side.
Okay, let's look at the,
Okay.
all right, do you want to? Let's go, we can take it in any direction you want. I'll start on the revenue side. What,
I mean, that's basically what we need is revenue.
if we can increase some of the revenue, then we can have a little bit more leeway.
Right.
I had suggested in the memo. Well, you go through what you have and we'll catch up with mine. What do you have as
Well,
revenue?
first of all, the hotel tax.
Yeah,
Okay. Is it a statutory issue with regard to allocating 50% to?
no, that's it's a representation we made to the hotels that when we put in the tax that we got their agreement not to, you know, Don went to them and said, listen, we're gonna put this in, but we're gonna put half the money into fostering tourism, so it's gonna go back to your benefit.
Right.
And they basically did not fight us on going to the Albany and getting the hotel tax put in.
Okay,
So we're honoring that agreement, but all it means is that 50% goes to tourism,
right,
which, you know, is a very broad category of things that we can
right.
do.
For instance, so that $100,000 that remains.
What's the line item, just so I
It's the
can,
line item,
A
A
1113.
1113.
A 1013?
One, one,
One,
one,
one,
three. It's
one,
the,
three.
it's the first item under non-property taxes.
Wait a minute.
On the first page.
Permits other. Wait,
Go to,
oh, that's the permits, okay.
Line 17.
That's really weird that I can't, I don't know why my numbers aren't, oh, one, okay, I'm in a different thing, okay. 1 month, 1 3, tax on hotel room occupancy, all right, so you're saying to do
So
what?
I would say that we have look, you could still do the 50%, but the 50%, I would say up to half of that going to grants, which we've been doing. Right now, we've spent 40,000 thereabouts on grants.
We've spent a little more than that because we spent 28 and like 30, so we spent about 50 or $60,000 on the grants in the last year.
Okay.
So we generated, the actual was about 162,000. So 80 of that we theoretically could have allocated to grants. We allocated, actually, it's not grants. We shouldn't say grants. Allocated to tourism. We allocated less than half of it toward tourism so far this year. And we weren't planning on making grants until the summer, which would be in the next budget year. So we
Right.
will have some overage this year in that account.
Okay, well, those overages should go to the general fund, and I think part of that quote unquote 50% should use to defray the cost of the as you mentioned, the code enforcer.
Well, I think that here's what I would say about that. I think for the 50% isn't part of the revenue. The revenue just has it as, right now it's booked for $200,000. That's the revenue.
Right.
The part that you're talking about is on the expense side, that right now the allocation of that, we've allocated $100,000 to tourism, which we could change that allocation to put more money into the quality of life code enforcer,
Right.
and which would just mean that there is
It's paid for.
somewhat less for the whatever the line item is under expense item A66410 4,000.
What line item?
6410, it's under the expense side, 6410, 4,000, publicity tourism. Right now, we've budgeted,
What line is that?
it's line 121 on the, it's row 121, it's line,
I got it.
so that, you see, there's the $100,000 that we allocated for, we could reduce that, and then it would, and then just in mental accounting, the 50% is really in mental accounting, and it's really just to be able to say, you know, we're putting this toward improving tourism, which I think improving the quality of the streets, it does improve tourism.
Right.
So it's not, that's not that, but that's not, we're not going to increase the revenue. It's not going to increase the revenue line one way or the other.
No.
In fact, last year, I went and looked at last year's budget. When I looked at last year's budget, we actually had an issue of that, about the way it was booked. And so we said, let's book it, to make it clean, we'll book it as it's $200,000 of hotel room occupancy tax revenue. And then we're going to we're going to allocate 50% of it on the expense line to tourism. And then the other 50% just is diffuse. It's not
the
allocated.
bottom line is, if the board wants to allocate less than $100,000 for tourism, it can do that.
It can do that. Yes, we can do that. We could budget significantly less if we want to, but I think we definitely want in mentally to say we're putting at least $100,000 or so next year into some sort of tourism, but it could tourism in a variety of ways. And there's other things in the expense line that we could theoretically say, hey, this is going for tourism, even though we were already paying for it out of our general fund.
Right. Well, that's one way of paying for the code enforcement.
Yeah.
officer.
All right, anything else on revenue side?
Yeah, parking.
Yes, the $300,000 on the parking,
Right.
that is on 2817 A 00002817, it's line 72 on the spreadsheet. Now you want to explain, Andy, you want to explain this $1 million debt that we have on this?
So-
How that worked? How
Right,
that-
so for many years, I'm not the best person to explain that, but for many years, because I use the word debt too, but it's not really,
Not
it's
really
some
debt.
other kind of.
It's the balance
So
sheet.
basically, yeah, basically parking couldn't make its rent for a number of years but was spending money, and so the village general fund backstopped it, and they ran up a
So
debt.
they were losing money on the parking. We were losing money on parking.
Well, let's be clear, one of the big expenses for parking is paying rent to the village
Okay.
for its street occupancy meters
Okay.
and parking space, stuff like that. And so parking was paying for the cost of labor and maintenance and stuff like that. but if, when you add up all the costs, including $300,000 of the village, it didn't make it. And so that was the budgeted amount and it didn't make it. And so over the years, the village accumulated
And arrear.
a debt between the parking fund and the general fund. That makes us look bad to our bond rating agencies.
Which means it was really dumb because it was just totally self-imposed. We could just lower the amount that we charge the parking authority, right? At any
well-
given time, we could have reduced the rent to the parking authority so there wouldn't be
Yeah.
a debt.
I don't want to say that the past way of doing it was wrong in some way. I don't want to agree to that, but the $300,000 is a number which is, it's supposed to be like a lease payment. In other words, it's not just like a plug, like it's 300 for some reason that was determined, which we don't know exactly the logic of, but that's the number. And so parking's been doing well.
So it's paying
Early in my tenure, we raised the basic fine.
Mm-hmm.
And the guys are working hard. They're out there enforcing the rules and people are using the app and the meters. So parking's doing well. So parking's been able to pay down some of that deficit or balance
The
sheet
balance sheet.
deficit,
Yeah.
which is really good for this village's
Yeah.
look toward bond rating agencies.
Okay.
Well, I understood it to be a little bit more than that. I understood it to be, that the parking authority income was used as a valve to help balance the budget.
Well, you've been talking to Rich.
To Jen.
To Jen? Jen said that?
Yeah. And so in order to do that, it became, a
drug.
balance sheet line,
Yeah.
right? And so that the balance sheet line kept on increasing because the amount that the village would utilize the parking authority income was not in balance, right? It was, and so it just appeared on the balance sheet and it kept on growing and growing. And that's what the auditors
Yeah.
don't like. And so
Probably they were exaggerating the revenues and not hit the number.
what's the current revenue, the annual revenue of the parking authority? I heard it was like 1.2 million.
I'm sorry, so we don't have that budget in front of us right now. We just have the revenue to the general fund for the
Right.
parking authority.
Which is a 300,000.
Right.
Right.
So, but suffice it to say, the parking authority has been in the black for a few years now. It's enabling the village to pay down on that debt, and also actually make the full rental payment to the general fund of $300,000.
Has there been any thought of reaching out to Park Mobile? I don't know what their fees are per se, but in terms of negotiating, considering, I would imagine that if their revenues are consistent or growing, that we might be able to potentially negotiate a more favorable contract with Park Mobile, which could just be another piece of the puzzle.
The answer is yes. In fact, I asked for a copy of the budget last week, which I got, which I haven't looked at yet. I was gonna look at when we start getting, but I'd like to talk to them about. I mean, there's a couple things I'd like to talk to Park Mobile about is the fact that the way it works is I think it's a 40-cent transaction fee that we pay for every transaction, regardless of whether we charge the transaction. So we pay it on every free 15.
Right.
Which is why we only allow the free 15 on the kiosks, because we try not to make it that easy to do the free 15, because it was, I mean, we actually don't get a lot of people don't, as much as they say, don't get rid of the free 15, 800 people used it last year.
Yeah.
Like the whole year, 800 people. So, or 800 times. So it may have been like, there may be like 5 people love it and they use it like every day. But I would like to be able to do the free 15 on the app. It's just that we can't afford to pay
Yeah.
40 cents every time someone does it.
Wait,
So-
40 cents, 800, it would use 800 times in total.
We used 800 times in total.
So 800 times 40
It
cents.
was
is-
nothing. That's why we're not,
Yeah, the free 15 is,
300.
the free 15 is not,
it's just kind of a feel good thing.
yeah, the free 15 didn't cost us much because no one really uses it. It's a pain in the ass to use.
I mean, I would imagine we would be able to negotiate more than $300 from them, hopefully. So
Well,
$300.
no, but it's not that so much. It's the fact that the reason people don't use it is you have to use the kiosk to use it. And the
Yeah.
kiosk requires you to type in your email, type in your license plate, it's a
Yeah.
pain. So if you could do it with tap, 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 we'd have more than 800 uses in a year. We'd have 50,000 uses. And all of a sudden now, it's now 10 grand for us to do it,
Mhm.
which is not insignificant. It's 10 grand plus the fact that people who get the free 15 would not be paying for their
Yeah.
every 80 cents for their 15 minutes. So I would like to see if I could get that reduced, because I think I would really love to be able to offer the free 15 on the app, because I think it would be just like you say, it's a feel-good thing, and it'd be nice to make it even more, because I think it is a fair thing to say, hey, listen, you go in 15 minutes, go ahead. I mean, that's a good thing.
I agree with that.
People complain too much about parking, but that is something that if we could do it, we would do it. It's just that it would be a lot of money and we don't, it's a dumb way for us it's a dumb giveaway if it's gonna cost us that much. I also would like to, the other thing I want to talk to them about, just so you know, is I want to find out if there's a way to validate parking through the app. Like, it would be
Yeah.
awesome if what people could do is they could do the thing and they go into a restaurant, the restaurant gives them a code or something like that they can put in to have the restaurant pick up what their parking is. Because it's just psychological. You're going to have dinner, it's $150 to eat anywhere if you're taking somebody out for dinner and having a drink. So it's $150, parking is $3. But yet, for whatever reason, people are like, oh, I'm not gonna, so we offer validation, it'd be better than that.
That's an American birthright,
Free parking.
But,
I
but,
don't know.
but what I would suggest is that we consider raising the parking rate.
I think that, what I would say is this, I don't think we should as part of this budget. I think, do we have a parking authority meeting? We haven't set one up here, right?
Yeah, we haven't scheduled it for a while.
I'm just looking to see if I have it. I don't even think I have a budget of I don't think I've ever played with the budget of the parking authority. I'm just looking right now at my notes, all my stuff on my computer.
I'll be honest, I am not in favor of us raising parking fees. I think people will murder us.
So
I'm
there's-
just not.
He's like, do it in your election year, not my election year. Do it in 25.
You've already got the signature, so it's not.
Here's the, you can still run independent. You can still run independent.
Parking is in the black.
But if we raise
They're
it,
making their rent payment.
Yeah.
And we recently raised the fine significantly.
So we did raise, from the perspective, we raised the fines. I actually think, and I know this is Cavish is like, he yells at me every time I see him about like, raise the parking. And we should say to him, hey, we raised the fine, and the fine, there's a big deal. We raised it like $10 per, if you don't pay your ticket in 20 days,
It used to be 15.
and that's
Remember that?
25.
Now it's 25.
See, you gotta pay your bill. But I do think that what I do think, if we were gonna change something on the parking, and this is not a budget discussion, so we should close it out, is we should change the hours to make it, because we could collect more money, and I know that people are like, well, I don't want to have to pay for parking if I go out to dinner. It's like, that's the one time when we should be charging for parking, is the one time when scarcity becomes an issue. And again, the people that complain, it's like, you don't even pay when you go to dinner. It's 7 o'clock, it's over.
Yeah.
But what happens is people park at 6 o'clock
They
that
don't
work
pay
here,
that hour.
and they park in all the best spots, and they just stay there all night so they get done, which I understand, because they get out at 1 a.m. They don't want to have to walk to get their car. But it does reduce the motility of the parking spaces, but which could also raise more revenue if we moved it from 10 to 7 to 12 to 12 or something like that. And we could look at that. We should look at that as part of a comprehensive look at parking, and we should talk to the Park Mobile people as well. But to go to the budget issue, I do think that, I mean, we could, and we have the budgeted amounts.
it's kind of hard to know if we don't have the budget, the revenue, actual.
With the actual revenues of the
revenue
parking.
So it's very hard to,
Well, let's make a note to get that for next time, just so we can see what it is.
because 300,000, it seems to be low. And I don't know, in terms of the balance sheet, and the annual quote unquote, these are all notional payments, basically, to reduce the balance sheet.
Yeah, can I just ask how long you think it'll take to reduce the balance sheet until it's?
I'd say like another 7 or 8 years, something like that. We're probably putting down $250 a year on that.
Okay. And if we increase it, would that then?
If we reduced our parking authority revenue, we'd give them more money to pay back the debt, but then we'd have more of a hole in our budget.
Okay.
I would-
Well, I was thinking more like, how do we, I guess, reduce the time it would take to then?
We'd have to increase parking revenue in one way or another.
Okay.
Or we'd have to stop charging them as much. We could say, hey, let's not charge them for the parking authority, but then we have to take it out of the budget in some other way.
Yeah.
I think that's a big wild card in terms of the budget, the parking authority
Well,
budget.
What it is, and the thing that's dangerous, that what makes it a wild card, is that it's fungible. It's basically, we can move it. We say, hey, we're $50,000 short. Let's just raise the
Which
parking
is what
to
happened.
$350, which is what they did, which is why we have the problem.
Right.
So that's the thing. You don't want to use it as the go-to. You want to have the discipline to actually cut your budget rather than rely on oh, we just give more money to the parking authority, and then if they don't have it, then they'll just owe it to us, which
Yeah.
is not really the right, I mean, I just think that we have enough stuff in here that we can find money otherwise. And without playing those without putting ourselves in any kind of risk like that. And also, I do think it's good that we start paying down this debt
Yeah.
or,
We
this
haven't paid
balance.
it down. We haven't paid it down.
We haven't paid it, but we continue to pay it down until it's gone, so that it goes away. And that money, that doesn't give us any more money one way or the other. It's just a change of where the revenue, but the more the parking authority does make, the more that we end up with in the operating account, right? I mean, that's cash flow, it's not revenue, not
Not
expense,
balance
it's cash
sheet,
flow, but it does help our balance sheet, it does help our cash flow.
Or an idea in terms of a reserve fund, right? And part of that money goes to a reserve fund, which is on the balance sheet, which negates the parking deficit. On the balance, one is an asset, one is a liability, right? So it basically,
I think that's the way it's done now.
yeah, but the reserve fund,
Well, in terms of all right,
it's a
I think
liability.
it's a liability on their books. It's somewhere on our statements. It's a debt that's owed us. So it's a debt that we have. But in terms of the actual, I put it this way: when the parking authority generates profit, in other words, whatever its costs are, it's generating more than that. The first $300,000 we get, the rest of it is a paper transaction to pay back the debt, but the money still is there somewhere doing something.
Yeah.
So that is in our general account, right? It's not, is a parking authority general account or our general account? I guess it goes into our general account because it moves over to our account. So there was one of the things that I did want to ask Jen, which I'd asked her, I don't know if she was prepared to answer if she was here today, is do we have a surplus this year? Our actuals look really good. And I know our cash flow are
In the parking,
no,
Just
I'm
in
saying
general.
in general.
yeah, just the overall, and part of it's parking, the overflow on parking goes into our general operating account. That, one of the things that we talked about and I talk about in the memo is, we can budget for reserve fund, but it also might be that we are pretty conservative about budget. I mean, our revenue projections are always pretty tight. And we hold the line on the expenses. And so we are generally running, like, for example, I said that we didn't spend all the money that we'd gotten on the hotel tax this past year. That what happened to that money? Well, that money it's in surplus somewhere. Now, of course, somewhere we spend more than we were supposed to spend. So, the question is, at the end of the day, do we have money that we can say, all right, well, we can say at a point in time, we're going to put aside $250 million into a reserve fund and then just have it be, given to me for sports wagering, and then I'll double it in 6 months. Probably not. Probably put in some sort of special account that might generate interest for us. And we could go ahead.
No, I was just thinking, just in the interest of moving things along, there's probably other kinds of revenues we could be.
Yeah, okay. So okay, good. So yeah, I thought you had an answer to my question about the surplus.
But cash flow analysis is important to see.
Yeah, you got to make your bills. Yeah, we had a little problem with that a couple of years ago before he was on board. All right, the one thing I said where I thought that we had some potential to put a little more revenue, which can help us close the budget gap, was building and alteration permits. Oh wait, was that the one I had? What is the one I had? Because that was another one I mentioned. I don't think it was the one I said we should touch.
Yeah,
No,
we have more data from Manny on that too.
Filming, parking authority.
it was filming. I thought that we could put more out of filming. I mean, filming right now, which is filming permits other, which is 0000259 line 58 on the spreadsheet. That is only set to be $45,000, which is below where it was this year, and this year we collected less. So normally you would say, well, we budgeted 65, we only collected 16, so we definitely should lower the budget, except that this year we had the strikes. That's why it was so low. But the last pre-strike year that we had, we made $143,000 on filming. So 45 feels to me a little bit conservative. I mean, we're booking things like Anne Marie's just like booking things like crazy.
So why not utilize the value that we had several years ago? What was it on? I mean, I think that is artificially depressed on the budget.
Yeah, well, and that's why I suggested moving up to what I said.
Can you look at the rate of bookings and use
It's
that.
just starting up.
It's just starting
It's
up
just
again,
starting
but
up,
if you were to go by what we've done over the last 2 months, you'd probably say that $100,000 would be about right.
Yeah,
I mean, because we're doing $10,000 a month probably on
so
bookings.
that
the
should
last
be
few
added
months.
to the revenues.
But I think that, I mean, I would still want to be a little conservative on that because, put it this way, I'd rather be a little conservative on that and then say to ourselves, surplus at the end of the budget year is going to go into reserve fund, rather than put a reserve fund on the budget that we have to put aside for. But in other words, I don't think you can put a reserve fund and be aggressive in your revenues. You can be moderate in your revenues and then hope that there's a reserve fund at the end of the day. But I did say that we should increase it from 45 to 70, increase it by $25,000. And we could do more than that. We could move it up a little higher than that. I think that Jen's being conservative here because of the history, but I think the reality is that we're going to get more filming work this year than we've gotten in previous years. And like I said, even in 21-22, we got 65,000.
21-22, okay.
In 21-22, right after COVID.
Yeah.
2021, we did 53,000 still. It was funny. I can't believe we got that much during COVID.
When was the highest year? What year was that?
Highest year was 22-23,
Oh,
was the
okay.
last year before the strike.
Before the
It was
strike.
140 grand.
Yeah.
And there's no reason, that was not like any particular production, right? Was there any particular like that we had?
We had a
Gilded
bunch.
Age.
We had a bunch of them. It wasn't like there was anybody that we were dependent on that's gotten
Yeah.
canceled. It's not like we're riding the gravy train like we were getting.
What, Severance,
Severance.
Blacklist.
Severance, yeah, Severance is
Yeah.
back. Severance, I don't know if they're filming here, but they're
Blacklist is finished.
They're finished, but they were part of that year.
Blacklist, yeah.
Yeah,
But then
done.
that might be the one. We used to get a lot of
Yeah,
Blacklist.
we got a lot of
But
them.
SVU,
But SVU's now here, which we
Yeah.
don't have.
FBI, they're
Yeah.
all,
So that would want, anything else on the revenue side that, do you see anything on the revenue side that we could play with? Bill, you were saying that we got some news on the building permits. What was some more flavor from,
Looking strong.
Yeah,
That's, I'm sorry. I don't think I have that sheet.
But it's still.
But yeah, it's looking strong. So Jen and I were gonna take another look at that. We had Manny make some estimates. And based on what he's seeing, there's gonna be a fair amount of construction in the coming year. And,
I know once.
so building and alteration permits. So I guess what I'm saying on that one is, although I'd like to talk with Jen about it, we could consider cheating that one up by maybe $50,000, something like that.
I mean, I'm only a little bit leery of it simply because we're already increasing it by 36% off last
It's
year.
already.
which line is this?
This is line item
2555.
2555 building alteration permits. We've moved it up. And our actuals this year are actually,
We did do a whole thing on that last year.
I mean, we're gonna hit our budget number. But it really is a matter of, I mean, this is the kind of thing where you can see with this revenue, because it's down, it's where are they in the process? They're gonna have to go through and get permits at various points in the process, which is what generates revenue. Now, if the projects have been started, you have to presume that they're gonna continue.
Right.
So that's why they're being relatively optimistic in that, about what they can get out of that.
I have a question real quick.
Sure.
The hotel tax. I'm just curious about the estimate, the 200K for this year.
Yeah.
I see that there has kind of been an increase over time. Is the relative increase based upon previous years what?
It only went into effect in January of last year. So we didn't have a full budget year going in. Last year's budget year that ended in
Yeah, that's
23,
right.
did not have a full year.
Okay,
So this is the first full year we've gotten. And so we're basing it on what we've seen over the last 12 months. And
Do
it's
you
really
know-
projected to be 200 grand a year.
Do you know when the approval was signed and everything by like the governor and became law?
I want to say sometime in mid 22. It became,
It's like halfway through our budget year.
Oh,
basically.
okay. yeah,
Gotcha.
just 'cause then I'm
but it
like-
went into effect in January.
Right, oh,
Right.
okay,
Which was 5 months left in our budget
okay.
year.
okay, that's fair.
So that's why, and that's a, I mean, think about that. It's a significant, when we say that the tax cap, if we raise the tax cap, we raise the property taxes by another 1%, it's 40,000. That's like a 5% bump in property taxes that we get by hitting almost no residents. No one who lives here really pays that unless they're, going up to the hotel up by Hogan's.
Okay, so let's leave that one where it is then.
Yeah, we can always toy with it if we want to hit something else. Anything else on revenues? All right, let's turn to the expense side. And the 10, you want to go over the 10 discretionary expenditures, which are where the big ticket stuff is? And if there's other stuff you think that we should be looking at from expenditure side, you let me know. What do you
So
think?
you're talking about your list of.
Yeah, my list of the 10, the stuff that's mostly in
The top
green.
10.
I've got a question on
Yeah.
that, but
Which one?
I'll wait if there's, that I don't want to butt in.
Is it about the top 10 or something else?
Yeah, it's about the electric car.
Oh, okay, we'll talk about the electric car now.
So are you still looking at the spreadsheet,
I can pull up this.
the 5/31/24 one?
The memo.
Oh, you're looking at your memo.
Oh, now we can go to the memo now, because the memo just sort of sets it out in a narrative form.
All right, I gotta pull that up. The memo, which is on the village website, right?
Did you put that one on the village website? I just wrote it today. It might not be on there. I'll send it to you right now if you want to.
Oh, you sent it by email.
I sent it via email to you all.
Oh, okay, yeah, sorry. I thought-
I'll send it to you right now. I'll send it to you right now. All right, check your email. So now I made it, so the first thing, the biggest thing was the Camp Nyack extension. I had presumed you meant to expand it by 2 weeks to 8 weeks, because 8 weeks is kind of the summer.
Yeah, no.
That's basically July and most of August.
Yeah, no, that's definitely what I had thought. I
Okay.
honestly, my original thought process was before we even think about extending, I just want to get them to reduce their deficit just without the extra 2 weeks.
Reduce their deficit, meaning what they have to fill up.
Right, what that extra space between the RFP and how much their actual costs are. That was more what I was thinking, but I'm not opposed to giving, depending on Kim and staff and everything, and I know,
I mean,
I
they
did
do
not respond
get,
to your email, but I did read your email. Sorry about
they
that.
do get funding from other sources for it.
Right.
There is fundraising they do, and that it was part of it.
Mhm.
I can read out to you. I have it right here. Uh, the funding they get on Camp Nyack, other than us, is they get dance, art, and other enrichment is covered by the Lang Family Health and Wellness grants. Tutors are covered by Nyack School District grants,
Right.
and they get Nyack Center fundraising efforts and donations. Now, they pay, I mean, for Camp Nyack, we're providing 124.5 out of their, I forget what the total, 143. So we
Yeah.
cover about 88% of the funding.
Yeah,
Now, your feeling is we should pay 100% of it.
right, only because it's for Nyack kids, we putting this program on, like through the RFP process, they are doing something for the village, for the community. So that's where I felt that we should at least close that gap as much as possible.
It's only for Nyack kids.
Well,
It's
so-
other non-NIAC kids pay a fee for
Right,
it.
they pay a full fee, what is it,
$1,800, yeah.
$1,800 for
Okay.
If you're an
6
upper
weeks,
NIAC,
yeah.
you're paying $800, $1,800.
Yeah, but no
Now-
Nyack kids
now-
are,
That's what's supposed to happen. I've gotten the sense that sometimes those kids, understandably, they're gonna, some kid comes and he's on the wrong side of the border, but he doesn't have any money to pay for it. It might be they look the other way on, and I don't know that I might say, oh, well, I didn't happen to catch that either. So, it's not like
But on the
it's not the
whole,
worst thing in the world.
But
The
on-
worst thing was, but they have 83 campers last year, almost all of which were NIAC kids, and they didn't turn anybody away.
Yeah.
They didn't turn anybody away. It's a good program. It's a good program. I would like to extend, because I do think, I mean.
oh yeah,
I think-
I'm in favor of that too, don't get me wrong.
But if I'm sort of like, I get your point that like, it's really an RFP based program, because it's not necessarily there. It's Camp Nyack. It's not
center.
Yeah,
it's not a center program.
Yeah.
It's a village program that they provide, and we pay them to provide it. My only concern is that, like, I don't necessarily want to take them off the hook, that,
yeah,
it may be that, no programs when you're a nonprofit are profitable, but it
Mhm.
might be that, they're paying people to work on the program, but those
Yeah.
are people that might be on staff otherwise, that
Right.
might be, so
right,
I don't necessarily want to take them completely off the hook on on doing some of the funding for it. Particularly if we're gonna expand the weeks. I mean, if you look, the number I came up with when I
Right.
did it was that it would be, if we extend it to 8 weeks, it would be $42,000 more for us if we funded 88% of the cost, or
Mhm.
$48,000 if we picked up the entire added cost. But if we picked up everything, like 8 weeks and basically picked up the full cost of the camp, it would be 192,000, which is not far off from what the 75,000 additional that Pascal had put into the request for the budget. But if we do that, then we were leaving a little bit of it, then we have a hole to make up if we put, but I'm not,
I mean, I don't wanna put us into a hole, so I do like your suggestion.
going to like 150 or so on
What was the increasing, yeah, like, yeah,
250,
Yeah.
250. So it'd be
Yeah.
another 25,000 we put into it,
yeah,
but then put the RFP out for 8 weeks of camp. Or maybe 7 weeks of camp. Maybe we just split the, I mean, the thing about 8 weeks of camp is that, and I know this because I deal with it with my kids, is you don't actually have 8 weeks.
Right.
Like you look at the count, the school runs to like almost the third week, fourth week of June. Like it ends up on like June 22nd, June
Yeah.
23rd is when school ends. They usually do they even start the camp before
Right, 'cause I'm
4th of
like, I
July?
don't think I thought they started camp after 4th of July.
If they start 4th of July, you really can't do more than 6 or
Right.
7 weeks, because
Right.
all of a sudden school starts by
Right.
the end of August.
Yeah,
So maybe we do it. Maybe we do it 7 weeks, but we pick
I'm
up
cool with
we do an RFP for 7 weeks at 140 grand or 150 grand.
yeah, I think that works.
7 weeks makes sense, at least from the school district perspective. You
Right.
have 1 week in June
Right.
and then July and August. So usually, I mean, ideally you want to get all of August, but just thinking in terms of that extra week.
Well, I mean, I'm thinking for even, cause how old are the kids usually? I can't remember off the top of my head. They're like elementary.
I don't know. I didn't answer that
uh,
question.
Age, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, for the older kids, it's really about closing that gap where they're not just sort of like meandering around.
The way this is oriented is that we say, all right, we're doing an RFP, we'll spend $140,000 for 7 weeks of camp. Who's willing to do it? And then nobody else bids on it except for them, and then they do it, and then if there is a shortfall, they pick up the difference. And from a village perspective, from a donor to the Nyack Center perspective, it's like, oh, they're spending my money. From a village perspective, I'm like, well, you know what, instill in them a little discipline where they try to keep the cost within their RFP, so they don't have to go to their donor base for it.
Right.
But and if they feel that it's not enough, then they could come to us and say, we can't do it at that amount. You have to either put more into it, or you got to cut a week.
Okay,
Which I think would be an appropriate response for them
Yeah.
if they felt that it was not viable without hitting their
Okay.
coffers too much.
Is there any scenario that there are, and probably not because you've probably done this already, but county or state grants, if we're gonna be covering the whole thing, to be able to. This is a equity issue as well, so I would imagine that there could be something.
We have our eye out for, I mean, I whenever I get these grant things, I send it to Andy and he's like, all right, enough of the, yeah, all he does is send it to our, we have a grant writer that looks at these grants, sees whether we're eligible for them. So we beat the bushes for all of them, because we'd love to get the grants on anything that we don't have to. That's we might as well grab for it. It's
Right.
like being those parties when you have little dollar bills floating up and you just grab them as a thing. We should grab as much money as we can. You never done that? It's usually not real money. It's usually fake money, but then you
Well,
go back
that's
to. You never done that? You never seen that like a sweet 16 or something, or a bar mitzvah?
no.
I mean, they do it in a cage, right?
Yeah, there's like a little glass thing, and the thing starts blowing money up in there, and you have to grab it in 30 seconds.
I have
You've never seen that?
before.
I was at
Alright.
Old Westbury bar mitzvahs. I was at
Oof.
like Yapang bar mitzvahs, sorry.
All right, so next up, well, this is not when I was a kid, we didn't have that because they didn't have the technology for it.
So did
The,
you guys make a decision about, because we're gonna have to.
Have to put
we
this
gotta go
together.
through this whole
I think we
series.
talked about like $140,000 for
Yeah,
RFP for 7 weeks.
The additional 42,000, I think.
Wait,
The additional 42 or additional-
You said 20.
Oh, sorry,
It's
yes. I keep
150,000.
looking at your suggestion, thinking that that's the right thing, but what you say?
140,000.
Yes.
Which would be another 16,000.
Yeah.
Let's make it 145. We'll make it 145. This will make it $20,000 more than we give now to add, and we'll do for 7 weeks. The road paving, you would propose 55,000 for additional road paving. The question I had for you was, what is our budget for road paving, given what we have from the state right now? Like, how much would 55 be? Would be on top of 500,000, would be on top of
No, it's
75,000?
On top of like 150 or something,
That's it.
200, something like that. I find our aim.
This is AIM and this is CHIPS as well?
Chips, yeah, it's chips.
We're
You think
trying to get an increase in the budget.
I know, they're trying to do the aim for the 15th year in a row. The 15th year in a row,
Oh,
we're
no,
trying to
I'm
increase
not,
AIM.
I'm not talking about AIM.
Oh, that's all right, Chips. You've already given up on AIM? AIM is not gonna happen?
I won't lie, I gave up.
All right, all
The
right.
reason, I mean, my
How many
boss
miles?
loves transportation, so I fight for chips more than anything, so yeah.
What's the cost per mile for paving?
That's a wonderful question. I haven't thought yet.
Well,
I can definitely find a number because we got quotes from Tilcon.
and I have something I was supposed to give you, Andy, about, some cost saving measures that maybe Tilcon can implement in terms of the type of pavement we're using, recycled pavement. I have the information for you. I just kept forgetting to send it. About why it's a good thing, and it could save us money. And our roads, there's not much difference between, like freshly created asphalt and recycled asphalt.
So our CHIPS allocation is usually $145,000. And then we use other monies in typical years. We've got some money stored away. We used ARPA money. We used O&R matching. They did a bunch of gas line work and gave us money for paving to repair the roads after that. So we built out the budget probably closer to $200,000 for a typical paving year. We need more than that to keep up. We also have concrete work we have to do when you pave a road. Sometimes you want to do ADA corners. We've done a couple of those, spent about 25,000 on the corners over by Pilgrim and Franklin and High Avenue last year. So that kind of stuff comes up. The other piece of this is the crack seal program, which is not paid for by CHIPS because the sealing doesn't last 10 years. But the village board allocated, I think, $30,000 in our last budget.
Is that in this line?
It's, I have to go back to that line. Let's see.
I just don't know the ceiling. It's the
The chip seal. I'm sorry, the crack seal is it's not the same thing. You can't pay for it with the state
It's
money.
105?
50,000. What it says here is $50,000 for road paving, $15,000 for patch and repairs. The
Right.
total budget right now is actually the total budget for road repairs is $100,000.
Yeah.
The increase is 55,000. Last year was 45,000 was in the budget.
Right, so what I asked for there was the road repair budget plus a $50,000 extra paving money, basically. To add that to our paving
Yes.
project. But to keep the crack sealing, and the other part of that is basically potholing, cold patch and extra asphalt for potholing, seasonally. But the crack sealing is really important because it preserves your pavement.
Yes.
And just, we need paving money, so extra $50,000 for paving. Enables us to go after those roads. We got a lot of roads to do, basically. We got, as you've seen our paving plan for this year.
Yeah, I just don't know. It's tough for me to judge about, is that, like, in other words, for me to judge this, you kind of have to know, all right, here are the roads that we do based on the CHIPS money.
Mhm.
And here's the additional roads we can do if we have this other $50,000. That's what I would, that's
Right,
just in terms of mentally, I kind of need to know like what.
Visualize where this is going.
What is your plan to, I know there used to be a plan that 10% of the roads are done every year, so within 10 years, you're able to, is that
Right.
correct?
yeah,
Yeah.
usually you're on a 10 to 12 year lifespan for
Right,
your
right.
pavement.
Right. And the patch sealing, does that,
That extends the life of a road certain roads are too cracked to be crack sealed.
Yeah.
But if they have just sort of long, relatively isolated cracks, crack sealing makes sense.
so we could, basically, on those roads, we could extend the
It
lifetime.
extends the
of that.
lifetime of the road, yes,
Right, okay.
yeah.
Okay, so the question is, how many miles does $55,000?
Additional.
How many miles? I mean, basically, what's the cost per mile?
Okay, we'll find that out.
It might actually make more sense to do it by, well, I guess once you have a mile, you can do a quarter mile, just because a mile's a long.
Yeah, I know.
Nothing
but
like
again,
by
but
block, but block is not quite a
it's
precise definition. So like
easy-
a mile, you can
it's
just
easy
break
to
it up.
divide by one than it is to divide by point, so.
All right. So let's try to find out, just in terms of letting us visualize. I mean, I think it's a worthwhile request to add 50 grand on top of basically add $50,000 for the paving on top of what we get from chips and whatever it is, the other, what's the one they never raise? AIM. And
We'll do one.
let's see what the
I mean, the
What
issue
roads?
is that if, and I believe I have this right, I think we're spending a little over $200,000 on paving this year.
yeah,
So we're using chips plus money that's left over in a paving fund from past years. It was built up.
okay. But we're using that
So
up.
we're not gonna be able to afford to just pave with chips money.
And AIM money.
Eventually the well's gonna run dry.
Yeah,
Okay. If we want to keep the same pace of paving that we've done
Right.
for last year, is
Yeah.
what you're saying. Okay. All right, 3, we are up to Taylor's $50,000 electric vehicle. Tell me, here's the question. When I said something to you about this, you said they've already bought the vehicle?
So we bought, here's the story with EVs is the following. Right now, we're able to get external funds for EVs. We've just bought one for the building department with, largely with external funds. And we've got 2 more that we can get with external funds. The building department's, desire for another EV, is probably a discretionary item at this point, I would say. They don't have a car to replace, actually replace the Chevy Impala with the current EV. So we're adding to the fleet. And the,
Well, how many, at the end of this process you're talking about, where we're getting this outside money, how many cars will we have in the building department? How many electric cars will we have in the building department?
so right now we have 1 and we're retiring the Chevy Impala that's
Okay.
replacing. So we're staying at an inventory of 1 vehicle for them.
One vehicle, but you said there's 2 more that we're getting.
There's 2 more. We're channeling those towards the water department because they
Oh,
have
not-
actual vehicles. The state money can only be used if you're retiring the vehicle as part of the deal. Like they're trying to get rid of
Okay.
the dirty old engines and replace them with EVs.
Okay,
So if we want to have an EV come into the building department, and we have no vehicle to retire, it's just
this is buy.
general fund.
We're not getting it.
So we have one, we have one.
We have
now.
one Impala that's getting replaced, that we're getting money for
Right.
that. And you're saying there's 2 over at the water department that they're
At the
getting
water
replaced.
department, we're gonna retire an old pickup truck and a Jeep Patriot that the
At
supercharger.
the water department,
Right.
but they have their own budget.
They have their
right?
own budget, it's not our
Yeah,
budget.
yeah. But
So
the village itself, we have 1 EV
for the building
for
department,
the building department.
well, we're
Right.
gonna have 1 after we get rid of the Impala.
Yeah, we have one. It was.
so we'll
delivered
have 2
yesterday.
after we get rid of the
What
Impala.
do we get? What do we get, by the way?
It's a Nissan Aria, pretty sharp looking little
I
car.
haven't
It's a
even
hatchback,
heard
so
of
it's
that.
4-wheel drive.
So we have 1 and we're gonna get
So I'm
another.
very
one.
excited.
Well, that's what so you say that we need to get another one.
Well, here's the thing, right now, the
Andy
building
wants
inspectors,
more.
he wants one. They drive their own vehicles around to their things that they do. And we reimburse them for their mileage. That reimbursement is in the budget, and it was like $2,500 last year to reimburse them for the budget.
Yeah.
So my point is only that, I mean, it costs us $2,500 to reimburse them for the budget. Oh, we can buy a depreciating asset for 50 grand and save them having to drive their own vehicles. But I know they probably put some miles where they do go from place to place, but it's a square mile. The village is not very big. Like, it's very tough to put on a lot of mileage on your personal car going back and forth in the village. I mean, you'd have to really drive continuously all day long to put more than 20 miles on a day on your vehicle. So here's what I would say. And I'm not, it's not that I don't think that the building department deserves this stuff. It's that there's a salary increase for the building department's chief inspector within this budget. There's that. Last year, we spent a lot of money on that software that they wanted. They did get 1 electric car to replace the Impala that I guess was in the department before. So they do have 1 car. And I sort of feel like this is a place where I feel like we could save at least a little bit of money. At the very least, not getting a $50,000 electric car. And I'm turning it over to him, because I think that's what he wants to join in
Literally
on.
what I was gonna ask, why are we, like, there's Chevy Bolts and other stuff. If it's an Aria, and I'm assuming you said it's a hatchback, I don't remember what the Aria looks like. It's not a pickup truck. It's not like we're getting an F-150 Lightning. They don't require something that's like,
No, they don't
So-
cart stuff around.
exactly. So are we required to get that, or can we get a more affordable EV, like the Bolt or something like that? I mean, even
Here's
Tesla.
the Nissan Aria.
For the
That's a big
village,
boy.
Oh,
it-
can he, yeah. what's
it
that?
makes sense to have an all-wheel drive vehicle.
You can get an all-wheel drive that's not
This one,
There's ones that are up below 50 grand that are still all-wheel drive.
Yeah, these are $43,000.
They're cobalt batteries.
I don't know what the batteries are made out of.
That's a good question.
Oh,
the,
Well, my
yeah,
question is,
I kind of do
is it
agree with that.
really imperative to get another electric vehicle? Or either we utilize, reimburse mileage on the one hand. On the other hand, either a used car, which is tremendous depreciation in these electric vehicles over the past.
and they don't wear out that easily. That's what I was thinking was that I could see budgeting some money for it, but not the full 50,000.
Yeah.
But they
What
can
about
get a
leasing?
car, but when we get a,
Can I just ask, is there no like NYSERDA assistance for something like this?
Yeah, that's how we're buying
That's,
them.
okay. And that's the retirement buy
Yeah,
one?
that's
Okay.
why, the reason why we want to channel the next two purchases towards the water department is because the water meter reader puts a lot of miles on it.
Yeah,
Full pickup that gets very bad mileage.
yeah,
And then they have the superintendent's vehicle is
okay.
ready for retirement.
Just to add like one more layer of like 100%, we should be shifting away from gas and trying to figure out how to be a more sustainable community. And the reason I asked about cobalt is because our computers, our phones, and electric cars largely are mining in places like the Democratic Republic of Congo. And so if we're looking at sustainability, like globally and our complicity, like I think it's good for the village to be thinking about.
what's the other,
There are cobalt-free batteries, but there's not like, EV, people who are doing EV have already really invested in cobalt. And so it's hard to, I don't know that there's a clean answer, but it would be great for the village to be considering, those questions as well.
Yeah, if there's like, for example,
well, is there a car that's made that is cobalt free?
well, that's a good question. I'm looking it up right now.
I mean, if there is, certainly all other things being equal, but if the cars don't exist, then
I do
Yeah,
agree
it's not
that we
really an
could
option.
probably
But the
find
question-
something.
The question then, can we lease a car?
lease
You
things.
can lease a car.
Yeah.
Yeah, instead of
I don't know if it's
buying it
profitable.
right.
I
Well,
mean,
actually, no, it might be in terms of reining in mileage.
I mean, the reason you don't lease is if you're, I mean, I would just say that I don't see why we wouldn't buy a 3-year-old car coming off lease. 3-year-old car is gonna, a $50,000 car, 3 years old is $28,000,
That's
you know?
yeah,
And
another
that's
thing.
why I would budget like that to, go looking for a deal. Looking for a snappy deal. Go into that car
Yeah.
dealer and run a hard bargain.
look, you can knock down the car purchase for the building department to 25, 28 grand. You can get a 2 or 3-year-old Toyota RAV4 or something like that, plug-in hybrid. Or something like that.
I don't mind. They can get a pure electric car. I like the pure electric cars because they have very few moving parts that need work. Where do we charge them, by the way? Do we have a charging up by the DPW?
Manny's got to deal with the hospital charge over there.
He's got to deal with the hospital charge. Okay.
And
We should probably get
the-
something, we should probably get charging installed at the,
Gonna charge it.
well, we have to get we have to get the charger thing figured out anyway. But in terms of like just installing a plug over by an
Yeah, we'll
overnight
run it.
plug
We'll run it.
at the DPW, we should be able to do it. It's not, it's basically a simple thing. You're just putting a washer
Would the car
dryer.
itself come with a kit anyway?
They come with a cord. They don't come with the char. They come with the cord.
Okay.
But you need, basically what you need for what we would need at DPW is, and I'm sure they even have them.
A level 2.
We just need the plug, the kind of plug that you use for washer dryer, not the regular plug.
A
You
240
plug,
volt.
yeah, I'm not a good electrician on that stuff, but yes, we need a bigger plug than what is the normal plug that you see around here. If you do that, you can generally plug it in and overnight it gets fully charged.
Okay.
It's not only the plug, you have to wire it in. such
It's
a
the
way-
wiring, yes, it's not you don't just, I discovered that when I burned my house down, that you can't just like put a bolt, a thing on top, a plate on top of it
Wait,
and then plug it in.
or did you just openly admit that your electric car helped your car house
No,
burn down?
I'm teasing about that. I'm saying that I don't know anything about the electric. I just know that I plug it in and it works because I had an electrician put in my thing.
No,
All right, $25,000. Are we good with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, then we cut 25 grand out of the thing right there.
Yeah.
I like your idea, just saying, of the buy used. I think it solves.
Yeah, I think it's a
One,
good
you're not
problem,
adding
yeah.
more to the chain. You're
That's
not-
true.
It's
Yeah.
sustainable.
So we can use that, we can buy that already, it's already in the market. The computer equipment and the software, 48,880. We did a lot of, we purchased in the budget memo I had last year, it said that we were converting to Microsoft for email. And we
Microsoft.
budgeted
No, I
for
don't
it.
think we actually funded that,
We didn't fund it?
not the Microsoft 365.
Okay, so we're doing it this year.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
Yeah, our
got,
insurers are very, and the.
our email's terrible. Our
No,
email's-
I concur.
Very bullish on that. And also moving, it's another 5 or 6 grand to move some of our financial software into the
To the
cloud.
cloud, and there's some computers in there. Our computers, I think, are, and at the end of the
Yeah,
life
there's
cycle.
a retirement plan with computer gets to be
Okay.
4, 5, 6
I
years.
don't have a problem with that.
I agree with it, given how many places just continue to get hacked.
Can we add
sensitive
some
information.
money for a sound system in Italy?
We actually, oh, remind me, don't let me forget the.
Oh, no, I know where it is. I just need the code to open the door.
Okay.
Like I pulled
I'll
it
give you
halfway up.
We actually apparently have the equipment. We just haven't, we have to, among the many things that we have to get around to doing.
All over this.
There's
road.
speakers everywhere, and Brianne Higgins said that she has something that she could hook up for us that would let us do it. It's just a matter of,
Microphones to everybody so that we could.
yeah,
Not hear each
that's
other.
not, yeah, that's,
That's a good
we should get them. I don't think we need, I think we can do with funding
Okay,
that we
great.
already have. I don't think we need to put funding in.
Oh, also,
It's not that big of an expense. It's
just as
just a
an
matter of actually getting it done.
inclusion to that clock. So that everyone who has public comment can see what
Oh,
time
yeah,
they
that
have.
was,
That guy, who brought that up? That was Corey
Yeah, he
Papandreou.
brought that up, but then also me and Elijah talked about it. He was like, and I know that they like to have them at Town Hall in Orangeburg.
They do, okay, so they use it there? All right.
Yeah, I've seen it there. I've seen it in Greenberg. I've even seen it in Village of Pleasantville. Their village hall is super nice. Not to say anything about our village halls not being nice, but there's very
Who's
high
this nice?
tech. Pleasantville,
Oh, is that right?
yeah, they have a very high tech.
They have all that Westchester money.
Level of income.
That's, they got Westchester money over there, my friend.
Go back to your driveway in Clarkstown.
All right,
friend.
let's talk about the judicial employees. Do we have any sense from the union about whether they're gonna approve this?
Yeah.
So the.
Do they have to
Judge and
approve
I had a good conversation today.
Okay,
Minister somehow.
It appears to be the case that we do have
On Sunday.
titles available to us through civil service, which are non-union positions. So he wants to talk with you about proposing some personnel promotions via different job titles and
take them out of the union,
yeah.
but that's, I mean, the long term, they wanna be out of the union?
So I would say going down the rabbit hole of trying to sort through contract, like the only thing you should worry about is, do you want to hang a number on it? Like if you want to try to get through to the end point of raising salaries for certain village employees, we need to have a number that we're willing to shoot for on that, and then we can figure out how to get there.
I guess,
I mean, with the union.
No, like with your budget. Like,
Well, but he's proposed this and it's not like, I mean,
do we have what everyone currently makes?
Like,
I
sure,
just
yeah.
wanna like sort of, I need a place to see where we're.
so there are concerns when you raise some people's salaries and the fairness issue can come up.
fair,
So we need kind of an analysis on that.
yeah.
There's concerns about talent retention and then in the comparison to other municipalities and how it looks there. So there's definitely some issues to work through, which are not really for public discussion. They're individual employee
Okay,
kind of
executive,
questions.
okay. Then let's do that. Let's try to get those numbers and let's do that, because we have 2 weeks to get it done.
Yeah,
Because Jen leaves in 2 weeks, less than that. So we'd like to try to get
End of next week.
end of next week, in theory.
More to say on that.
Okay.
But so
Oof.
for budgeting purposes, since we have to finish this, you need to decide what you're willing to put in the budget.
I think, I
for
mean,
this.
all right, let's assume that we can raise the salaries without distorting the building salaries of the people who do comparable jobs, regardless of whether they're in judicial or whether they're in clerk or whatever.
Right,
That if we find that there's a discrepancy, then I think we can adjust it. If we find that right now they're kind of aligned and raising the judicial would put them out of line with what the people in other departments of building or clerical, whatever, are making, well, then we have to look at
Yeah, there's gonna be resentment.
find a way to resolve that. Well, more than resentment, there's gonna be, I mean, the people in the union are getting different from I don't know. But I think we also have to look and say, okay, what are people getting paid when they work at Piermont and do this job? What are they getting paid when they work at Clarkstown and do this job?
well, I guess that's my other question too, is, are some of these jobs already subject to civil service or?
All our jobs are.
All-
except for
oh, okay.
Me and a couple people that judge.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what he was saying, that we can
Yeah,
find
you
some
can find
titles for
something,
them
yeah.
that would move them up. So let's just get some more information about it, because I'm not averse to it. I mean, I took the judge at his word that he thinks that it's really useful for them to keep them around. Hey, Natalie, it'd be really good to get them. We don't want to lose them. You don't want to lose people. I mean, you lose people now. You don't generally, what ends up happening is you end up paying more for the person to replace them because you can't hire somebody to do the job.
It's just, it's true for all of our employees, so.
So we have to make sure things are in line. All right, the reserve fund is the first thing to go. You know, it's a good suggestion. I just would like to, what I would like to know is I would like to know whether or not we actually run a surplus this year. If we run a surplus, that's our reserve fund.
Yeah,
You know, put it aside and say, let's have some discipline, not spend it. Because we, you know, our reserve fund, what would we do if we ended up having like a catastrophic year and we could bond for any kind of capital thing or anything that we really needed money for. We have,
Raise taxes.
we could look for grants, we could raise taxes, which would be a slow, because there's not that much money if we raise the taxes. But we might have, I mean, then we can look and say, okay, what do we got over in the,
You know, things
in the
come up. I
parking
mean,
authority and stuff?
a year or so ago during a heat wave, our air conditioning essentially stopped working in Village Hall. We had to buy a bunch of window units and suffer through for a few weeks until I think several tens of $1,000s were spent on the roof. Our bucket truck went in for an inspection, came back with a $14,000 bill. You know,
Yeah, but I don't think of that as a rainy day fund. I think of that as being the give and take of a normal budget
Right.
year. A rainy day fund is, you know, culvert snaps and we have a sinkhole, and we have to, that's where like you all of a sudden would say, oh my God, we have to emergency action. So I don't know. I mean, if we could, I mean, you could always build a reserve fund by just playing games with the parking authority, but we don't want to do that. I think we'd rather just say, if we can make a surplus, let's make a surplus. So
That's aspirational, the reserve fund, you know.
I mean, well, my thing is that I really do think that I don't know this, and I'm hoping that we can get an answer to the question as to whether we are running a surplus such that we have a de facto rainy day fund. We just don't call it that. We just call it like when an expense comes up like well, when we do have, we need HVAC, well, we got enough money in the account to be able to pay for it. It's not, even though it's not budgeted. So it's not that I am against the idea of having a reserve fund. I'm very much in favor of not
I
living hand to mouth.
100% agree with you. I mean, we need to have that, some way of, rainy day fund.
Yeah.
Are we allowed to have a reserve fund?
Yes.
We are. Okay.
The sidewalk construction is basically like the road paving, same argument.
Yeah.
We get a lot of money from other sources and whatnot to pay for
All
pavement.
our sidewalk work's been paid for through grants. And so, but the grant funded sidewalks are limited in the area largely to our CDBG
Downtown.
census tract and the Safe Routes to School. But we do come up with situations here and there where we need to do sidewalk work.
What I would say, what we talked about, when it comes to sidewalk, we have talked about the idea of starting a program where we would put up half the money for sidewalk restoration for property owners.
We'd love
Because
to.
technically they're supposed to do it.
It was a 50-50 split.
We did it at some point in the past.
yeah. Oh my God,
it
my
was,
grandfather
but-
So we could fund that with 25 grand. That's $50,000 worth of sidewalk repairs. That would be,
Well,
you know, and we could always add to it if we found that it was successful.
I thought at some point, wasn't that what the opt-out fund was supposed to go towards?
What opt-out?
The one for the 10% affordable housing, that fund, or that pot of money, is unless that.
No, that's a housing. It's supposed to, the
Oh, housing.
payment bill up goes
Okay.
into some,
Okay.
Where is that account? What's in that account? We got
it's got about
a
hundred and twenty in it. The one at the top of the hill, the lofts, paid out, I think about 100.
Oh, they paid out?
But where's that money? It's on the,
It's saved separately. It's a fund.
okay.
Look at escrow account.
But it's supposed to be designated. It's the legislation does say it's supposed to be designated for some sort of housing.
Right.
When, have we spent anything?
No, except I think if we ever got charged by Jerry Levy for that consulting work, it would have come out of that. I think we did. And if there's more development with more payments in lieu of,
We'll
that
get,
number will go
we'll
up.
go up.
And it's, there is in the law, there are criteria for using that money. But the village hasn't really developed a program around it.
Can we parking lot that for another discussion? Because I'm very interested in that.
Sure. I think it would be useful for us to have a list of all our accounts and what's in them. Because like, until I asked about it, I'm like, oh, I forgot, we talked about these rainy day funds. Well, we do have not that we would necessarily use it for anything other than housing, but if we did have a housing related emergency, which technically speaking is a sinkhole appearing in front, underneath a block in the residential district would sort of count toward that. That's sort of money that we could tap. But I also would like to get a list of all the grants. Like, I mean, our budget is just a snapshot of what we have, because we should only look at the budget in conjunction with the parking budget, in relation to the water department budget, and in relation to the list of grants that we've gotten in a given year and what's still outstanding. And these other funds that we might have that are dedicated funds.
That would be a good idea to actually, that's a financial snapshot of the, that would be.
For example, the hotel tax is a mental accounting of 50%, but it's not put in a separate fund. It's just put in general accounts. But the affordable housing, because it's in the statute, does get put into a separate account.
On the sidewalk construction, Tarrytown does it a little bit different. They do a 50-50 split.
Okay.
But the village pays for labor and the homeowner pays for materials. Which basically allows, because for the program that we had, it had to be done at prevailing wages, right? So basically it was cheaper for a resident to do it themselves rather than in conjunction with the village. So
That's something that, when you say we pay for the labor, who we paying?
That'll be interesting to figure out. If it's a public works project, it's gotta be prevailing wage.
So not the whole amount, but but if the homeowner pays for materials, so I think it'll be a little bit less expensive in order to do it, but that's something that needs to be checked out.
Are you using the sound system for the dinner tonight, right?
Yeah.
If
I
the village
can't remember,
board,
the cord got separated from the thing. The cord may not be there, but it should wear off battery.
Okay.
If not, I'll find the cord. It's in my car somewhere.
Okay.
So just text me and let me know that's not turning on, because I'll bring the cord when I come.
I'm just trying to think, you're talking about
Yeah.
material
Yeah.
versus labor.
We're almost done with this part.
Is that really 50-50? I don't know, I'm just asking.
Well, it's labor paid by the village and materials paid by the, so it might not be exactly 50-50.
All right, there's only two items left actually that
Yeah.
are in the list of new. So the paving, I think we should really think about budgeting the 25 grand for a 50-50 program, some sort.
Match or something, yeah.
Something where we're incentivizing people, because they're supposed to do their sidewalks. We're not supposed to do residential sidewalks. So if we want to do residential sidewalks, we should do it. We should put some money and then have the homeowners have some skin in the game with it.
People would like that, cause like I remember walking on Anna Street, a couple years ago, and folks up there were like, look, we wanna redo all this area, but we just can't afford it, so.
Is there maybe something that you can do regarding like a hardship grant or something like that? So that people who have the means are still on the hook, people who might not be on.
The way to do that would be to put something, like have some sort of, you pay us when you sell your house. Like for people that are house rich, but they don't have the money to pay for the sidewalk. But if they own the house, they've got money, they just don't have money right now. They're not liquid. So you could theoretically set it up. We can look at some of the details of that, setting it up with you could put a permissive lien on the property, so when it does get sold, the village gets paid back. It's money that put up to this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, good. The next item had to do with the raises for non-union employees. We should talk about that off in an executive
Yeah.
session.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then the quality of life code enforcer, we've talked about raising that amount out of the hotel tax money for tourism. And then the last is the sustainability coordinator, which we already, it's Marcy, and we've already approved that. And so that's already gonna be there. It's under a budget item, which should probably be broken out into a separate budget item. It's
Yeah.
under the grant writing budget item, so it's a little confusing.
okay.
So where we at, Joe?
Well, we didn't actually do the running numbers, but we're close. We're
very
okay.
close, yeah.
We're okay. We have a little bit we still have a little bit to play with the building fund, which can raise some revenue that way. And we reduced a little bit to the camp. And we reduced a little bit on the electric car.
And we had the filming,
And the filming, we're raising that a little bit.
Well, just to ask for the raising the filming, wasn't that an issue when we raised it like too high and then we didn't get anybody filming? Like, are we concerned about that at all?
I think we didn't get it because we had the strike. Which is
No,
not
I'm
bad.
talking about years previously before, I think it was under Mayor Jen White.
I don't have
When
the
they
budget going back that
lowered
far.
the housing credit so that we could entice more people to come and film up here. Because it was high and not many people were taking advantage of it.
What affects the filming business is whether or not the village is supportive of
Okay.
the rapid turnaround on permits.
Okay.
If there was a loss of revenues on that a few years back when there was kind of a snafu and one of the film scouts basically got kicked out of town. And a lot of people found out about it and they didn't want to come to Nyack for a while. So right now we have good relationships with them.
Got
It takes a lot of kind of work to manage those things.
Mhm.
And so it's just bear that in mind.
Okay,
I mean, the policy work that we did on it last year, we got through that. But we want to send a positive message to the film site location scouts that we're a group that they can easily get through and
got it.
get a reasonable deal from.
Okay.
We got some nice publicity about the Lestrews one. I mean, it was in the paper, it was in
Yeah.
it was on Low HUD, so that's
Yeah,
good.
I think it's very positive for the community.
Well, I'm just saying that what's good is it sends a message to the filming
Right,
people
yeah.
that, hey, here's a community where we have a lot of interesting architecture. We've got the, all right, you gotta go, just pick it's right. Oh, I'll give you the card.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
And is that, well, we have, if anybody else.
Thanks, y'all.
Today, I know we have two guests here. Did you have things you want to bring up about the budget?
I have questions, but I can figure them out.
Yeah, and
I
we
don't
don't
have
have another work.
Oh, you have to go or?
Yeah, I'm going to the.
You're going to things as well. I'm gonna go there as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
I'm gonna go there
yeah.
as soon as I'm done with
So,
that.
I'm-
If you want to email questions or if you want to come to the next public hearing on Thursday, next
Okay,
Thursday.
and then there's another budget.
And then there's another budget workshop
On the
later.
18th.
Do you have a timeline for finishing this meeting?
Thank you.
Do you think?
I
you
was
want to-
asking. For this, I
See
like-
you guys.
You did.
Do you need to-
No, well, we have the thing, the dinner that I'd like to go to, but I can continue to talk about things or I can cut it off and,
Right.
considering Jen's not here, so we have a limited ability to gather information.
So you'll be able to rebalance everything, with everything that,
What we talked about?
Yeah.
I'll play with some numbers.
yeah,
I'll get you like a report of the meeting.
yeah.
Tell her, what was her name that was here?
Oh,
Marianne,
Marianne
what?
okay,
Hunkin?
HUNKAN.
Hunkin, like, okay, Hunkin.
All right,
Like nothing.
Like Elvis.
we're still on camera.
Oh, good to know after the fact.
Yeah, I just was trying to remember, because she's been at the meetings, obviously. But there's somebody else who wrote me who's been at the meetings who wanted
To me,
to have
that,
a sit down. I wasn't sure if that was her. She just didn't want to reference it. All right, what else we got?
It's up to you.
Oh, we can do executive session now.
Okay.
Do you want to go into executive session? Sure.
All right.
Do we have anything else to talk about? Like, I mean, I've gone through the 10 things. If there's other stuff that's a big budget item you think we can cut or add, you let me know, because these are the 10 things I have. These are the new proposals and whether we want to cut them down to get them and to get them balanced.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to work with you on it
Okay,
after the meeting,
okay,
not tonight, but maybe.
okay.
Yeah.
I'll write up the thing, what we have so far.
We did, I mean, you did most of the work for us,
I tried to tee this up
Yeah,
to make the
you
decision.
That analysis and presentation was really, really good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, so let's take this offline. We're going to executive session. Do we need a motion? Are we in formal
Motion for
meeting?
executive
Workshop?
session on an issue related to personnel.
Personnel, yeah, but do we?
Is this a proper?
It's a workshop. It's not a formal
Yeah,
meeting.
it's not a formal meeting.
Just for the sake, can I get a motion to executive
Motion.
session? Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're gonna go into executive session. We'll not do any other business other than the executive session. We'll just adjourn the executive session, adjourn the meeting. So everybody who's watching, all our friends on Facebook.